Saturday evenings were supposed to be quiet. Routine. A time to unwind. I had just returned from the grocery store, a bag of essentials in one hand, a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, and a bottle of red wine. Just simple things my wife, Emily, had asked me to pick up, scribbled onto the back of an old receipt. Nothing about that night should have been memorable. It should have been like any other, the two of us curled up on the couch, half watching a show we did not really care about. That was the way things had been for a while now. Comfortable, predictable. But that was before I walked through the door and heard her voice. Emily was in the kitchen, speaking in a hushed tone. At first, I did not think much of it. A late-night phone call was not unusual. But then she laughed, soft, warm, familiar. Too familiar. Not the kind of laugh she used with her mother or coworkers. Not the polite chuckle she gave the neighbor when he rambled about his yard. This was different. It had a softness to it, something personal, something intimate. I froze just before stepping into the kitchen, instinct telling me to listen. "Yeah, he just got back," Emily murmured. "But we still have time." A pause, then another low chuckle. "No, he has no idea. He is always working, always tired. He barely notices when I am gone." The grocery bag slipped from my grip, hitting the floor with a soft thud. The milk carton tipped over, rolling a little before settling against my shoe. The sound was not loud, but it was enough. Enough to make her stop talking. I heard the shuffle of her footsteps. Then she appeared in the doorway, her phone still in her hand, eyes wide and startled, like she had just been caught sneaking in after curfew. "Oh," she breathed, quickly ending the call and stuffing her phone into her pocket. "You are home early." I did not respond right away. My gaze went straight to her phone, to her hand still gripping it tightly. I already knew. People like to think moments like this are dramatic, shouting, accusations, maybe even something getting thrown. But that is not how it happens. Not in real life. Instead, there was silence. Thick, heavy silence stretching between us, filled with the unspoken weight of everything that had just shifted. I could feel my mind scrambling, flipping back through weeks, months, maybe even longer. Her sudden interest in working late. The gym she never used before, but now swore she loved. The nights she was with the girls, but never sent pictures. The distance between us that I had convinced myself was just life getting busy. It had all been right there in front of me. "I forgot the wine," I said instead, my voice steady. Flat. Detached. Emily's lips parted like she wanted to say something, to explain, to lie. But I walked past her before she got the chance. I could not hear it. Not yet. In the bathroom, I locked the door and splashed cold water onto my face. The shock of it did nothing. I looked at myself in the mirror, at the tired eyes staring back at me. And that was when I accepted what I already knew. She was cheating on me, and it was not with a stranger. I recognized the voice she had been speaking to on the phone. It belonged to my best friend, Ryan. That night, I did not sleep. I lay in bed while Emily slept beside me, breathing evenly, as if nothing had happened, as if she had not spent the evening whispering to another man. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every word of that conversation over and over. Ryan. I had known him since college. We had built our lives side by side, celebrated promotions, stood by each other through rough patches, shared secrets over beer and late-night drives. He was like a brother to me, someone I would have trusted with my life. Turns out, I had trusted him with something even more valuable. By the time his son came up, I had worked through every emotion possible. Anger, disbelief, grief. But what I felt now was nothing. Not rage, not sadness. Just an eerie calm. The kind that settles before a storm. When I walked into the kitchen, I found Emily already there, dressed in her robe, sipping coffee like it was any other morning. "Morning," she said, smiling as she scrolled through her phone. I watched her, taking in a way she sat there so effortlessly, as if she had not shattered everything the night before. How many times had she done this? Lied to my face, crawled into our bed after being with him? I swallowed back the bitterness rising in my throat. She had no idea what was coming. "What is on the agenda today?" she asked casually, glancing up at me. I took a sip of my coffee and set the mug down carefully. "Not much," I said, my tone even. "Might meet up with Ryan later, though." Her fingers twitched slightly around her mug. But her smile did not waver. She still thought she had control of the situation. She had no idea. She barely reacted, just a flicker of hesitation in her eyes, but I caught it. Her hand wobbled slightly as she placed her coffee cup down a little too carefully. "Oh," she said, forcing an easy tone. "What for?" I shrugged, keeping my expression neutral. "It has been a while. Figured it would be good to catch up." Her gaze darted away, and before I could say anything else, she stood up, muttering something about taking a shower. I stayed at the table, watching her disappear upstairs. That was the first sign I had rattled her. And I was only getting started. As soon as I heard the bathroom door close, I pulled out my phone and started digging. I scrolled through months of old messages between me and Ryan. Nothing outright suspicious, just the usual casual texts. A lot of "busy tonight, maybe next time," and "let us catch up soon." The kind of responses you barely think twice about. Except now, I was thinking twice about all of it. I tapped into my photo gallery and landed on a picture from a few weeks back. The three of us at a backyard barbecue. Me, Emily, and Ryan. Smiling. Happy. Like some picture-perfect scene from a life I no longer recognized. Ryan had his arm around my shoulder like a brother. Like someone who was not sleeping with my wife behind my back. I clenched my fist around my phone, swallowing the anger bubbling in my chest. Not yet. If I let out now, I would lose the advantage. Instead, I closed the photos and set the phone down. I needed more. More proof. More signs. More pieces of the puzzle that I could slam down in front of them when the time came. By the time Emily came back downstairs, towel drying her hair like nothing had changed, I had already made up my mind. I was going to see Ryan today. I was going to smile, crack jokes, and let him believe everything was fine. But I would be watching, listening, waiting for him to slip up. She leaned down and kissed my cheek before grabbing her purse. "I have a few errands to run," she said. "Do you need anything while I am out?" I forced a smile. "No, I am good." And just like that, she walked out the door, still thinking she had control of the situation. She had no idea how thin the ice beneath her feet had become. I did not go straight to Ryan's place. Not yet. First, I needed time to think, to get my thoughts in order before I faced him. So, I went to the diner. It was the kind of place where time moved slower, where the coffee tasted burnt, and the waitresses had been working there for decades. I sat in a booth by the window, stirring sugar into my cup, though I had no intention of drinking it. Instead, I let my mind do what it does best, analyze. Looking back, the signs had been there all along. The way Ryan and Emily shared inside jokes, I was not a part of. The way he always seemed to know what she liked, what made her laugh, what kind of wine she preferred. I had brushed it off as harmless friendship. I had assumed our years of trust meant something. I had been an idiot. My phone vibrated against the table. I glanced at the screen. "Ryan, hey man, you free to grab that beer today? Let me know." I stared at the message for a long moment, my fingers tightening around the phone. The audacity of it. The sheer nerve of him to casually suggest hanging out, like he had not been sneaking around with my wife behind my back. But I could not let him know I was onto him. Not yet. I texted back, "Yes, sounds good. How about 2 p.m. at the usual spot?" The usual spot was a sport bar we had been going to for years. Nothing fancy. Just a place with sticky floors, cheap beer, and walls covered in old football jerseys. It was where we had always met up, where our friendship had felt unshakable. His reply came almost immediately. "See you there." I set my phone down and leaned back in the booth, exhaling slowly. I still had no idea how I was going to handle this. Should I play dumb and let him bury himself in his own lies? Or should I go straight for the throat and call him out on everything? The second option was tempting, but people like Ryan and Emily always denied things at first. They always try to twist the truth, make you second-guess what you knew. No, I had to be smart about this. By the time I walked into the bar, I had a plan. Ryan was already there, sitting in a booth near the back, scrolling through his phone with a beer in front of him. He looked up as I walked over, flashing me the same easy grin he always did. "Hey," he said, setting his phone down. "Been a while." "Yeah," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Too long." He took a sip of his beer, shaking his head. "Work has been insane lately. You know how it is." I nodded, acting like I was listening while my eyes studied him. searching for any sign of guilt. But Ryan was good, too good. He laughed at the right moments, cracked a joke about an old memory, and even asked about Emily. "So how is him doing?" he asked, casually sipping his beer. I clenched my jaw, but kept my expression neutral. "She is good. Busy, but good." He nodded, leaning back against the booth. "That is great. You guys have always been solid, you know." I nearly laughed. "Solid, right?" I took a slow sip of my own beer, keeping my voice even. "Yeah, we have had a lot going on lately, but you know how relationships are." Ryan nodded like he understood, like he was just another guy talking about marriage struggles over a beer. And that is when I knew I had to play the long game. If I accused him now, he would deny it. If I lost my temper, he would call me crazy. But if I let him think he was safe, let him believe I was clueless, he might just slip up. So I smiled. I let him ramble on about work, about a new restaurant he had tried, about some game he had watched last weekend. I pretended like everything was fine, and all the while I was watching, waiting, because I was going to catch him. And when I did, he would not see it coming. The irony of Ryan's words nearly made me laugh. Instead, I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "Yeah, we have. But lately, something feels different." Ryan raised an eyebrow, feigning curiosity. "Different how?" I shrugged, making sure to keep my tone casual. "I do not know. Emily has been distant, distracted. Maybe I am reading too much into it, but sometimes I get the feeling something is off." For a split second, just barely, I saw it. Hesitation. A tiny flicker of uncertainty in his eyes before he shook his head. "Nah, man," he said, forcing a reassuring smile. "Emily loves you. You're probably just stressed. You have been working a lot, right? It can mess with your head." I leaned back in my seat, watching him closely. He was smooth, I would give him that. If I had not overheard that phone call, I might have believed him. The waitress came by, refilling our drinks, and as she walked away, I decided to push a little further. "You ever notice anything strange with her?" I asked, tilting my head. "I mean, you have known her almost as long as I have. If anyone would pick up on something, it would be you." Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. "No way, man. Emily is solid. You're overthinking this. Trust me." He smiled, easy and confident, and I hated him for it. I returned the smile, pretending his words had eased my mind. "Yeah, you're probably right. Just needed to hear it from someone I trust." Ryan nodded, taking another sip of his beer, completely unaware that he had already lost. As we left the bar, he clapped me on the shoulder. "Let us do this again soon," he said, his tone light and carefree. "Definitely," I replied, already planning how I would bring him down. I watched him walk away, his posture relaxed, his confidence intact. But what he did not know, what neither of them knew, was that I had already set the trap. And soon, they would both realize just how wrong they were to underestimate me. When I got home, everything fell off. The house was still, like it was holding its breath. Emily's car was in the driveway, but she was not in the kitchen, not watching TV, not curled up on the couch like she normally would be. For a brief moment, my mind raced. Had she slipped out while I was with Ryan? Was she meeting him right now? Then I heard it. Faint music drifting from upstairs. I climbed the steps slowly, my movements careful, deliberate. I needed to see her, to look her in the eyes and gauge her reaction. When I reached our bedroom, the door was open, and there she was, sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone like everything was normal. She looked up and smiled, her expression perfectly composed. "Hey, you were back already?" I nodded, setting my keys on the dresser. "Yeah, just had a couple of drinks with Ryan." For just a second, just long enough for me to catch it, I saw it. A flicker of tension in her shoulders. The way she set her phone aside a little too quickly, as if she was afraid I might catch a glimpse of whatever was on the screen. She was waiting to see what I would say next. Waiting to see if Ryan had told me anything. "How was it?" she asked, trying to sound casual. I walked to the edge of the bed and sat down, keeping my tone even. "Good. We caught up. Talked about work, life, old memories." I let a pause stretch between us, then added, "I asked him if he has noticed anything different about you lately." Her eyes widened, barely, but it was enough. A reaction she did not have time to hide. "What do you mean by different?" she asked, forcing a laugh. I shrugged. "I do not know. Just that you have been a little distant lately." I figure maybe Ryan would have picked up on it too. Her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her shirt, a nervous habit she had always had. Ryan does not know anything about that, she said quickly. Too quickly. I had just been busy. Work, errands, you know how it is. I leaned back against the headboard, crossing my arms. I do, but that is not all, is it? She stood abruptly, walking to the closet and pretending to sort through the laundry. I do not know what you were trying to say, she muttered, her back to me. But if you are accusing me of something, you are way off. There it was, the first denial. Smooth, controlled. But I had been expecting it. I heard you last night, I said, my voice calm but firm. She stopped moving. I came home early. I continued, standing up now. I heard you on the phone. You did not know I was there. Emily turned slowly, her face carefully blank. I do not know what you are talking about. Do not do that, I said. Do not act like I am making this up. I heard you. I heard you say, I do not even notice when you are gone. I heard you laughing, whispering like you were sneaking around. So do not stand there and lie to me. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She sat down heavily on the bed, like the weight of my words had finally hit her. I took a step forward, lowering my voice. Are you seeing someone else? Her head snapped up. No, she whispered. I would never. Do not lie. I cut her off. She inhaled sharply, gripping the sheets beneath her fingers like they were the only thing keeping her steady. This was it. The moment she realized there was no way out. And I was not going to let her escape. She took a sharp breath, and for a moment, I thought she might crack, that she'd finally confess and come clean. But then, something changed in her expression. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and looked me right in the eye. You are wrong, she said, her voice steadier now. I'm not cheating on you. I did not know what you think you heard, but it was not that. She was good at this. I had to give her that. If I had not heard that phone call with my own ears, I might have believed her. But I was not that naive anymore. Then hand me your phone, I said, extending my hand toward her. Her face drained of color, and she quickly moved to stand up. Why? You do not trust me now. Just give me the phone, Emily. She hesitated, her eyes flickering toward the dresser where her phone sat charging. Then, with a forced laugh, she shook her head. I'm not doing this, okay? I am not going to be treated like some kind of criminal in my own house. I could feel my patience slipping, the anger bubbling beneath the surface. But I forced myself to stay calm. This was exactly what she wanted, for me to blow up and give her an excuse to play the victim. I will find out the truth eventually, I said, my voice cold and steady. You know that, right? She did not answer. Instead, she grabbed her phone and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind her. I heard her footsteps heading down the stairs, followed by the sharp sound of the front door opening and closing. I sat back down on the bed, running a hand over my face. She was slipping, and she knew it. The cracks in her lies were starting to show, and it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. I did not know exactly what my next move would be, but I knew one thing for certain. I was not letting this go until I had the full truth. And when I did, there would be no denying it. I did not chase her when she left. I did not call or text to ask where she was going or when she would be back. The truth was, I needed her gone. Her presence was suffocating, making it hard to think clearly. And I had work to do. I grabbed my laptop and moved to the dining room table, fingers tapping against the keys as I dug into every piece of information I could find. Our shared phone plan was the first place I checked. Call logs, text messages, and data usage records. It did not take long to spot the pattern. Late-night calls to a number I recognized immediately. It was not saved under a contact name, but I did not need it to be. I knew that number by heart. Ryan's. I clenched my jaw as the realization sank in. She was not just sneaking around. She was doing it recklessly, almost as if she thought she would never get caught. After I was done with the call logs, I moved on to her social media accounts. Most of her recent posts were ordinary enough. Pictures of her dog, sunsets, random snapshots of coffee cups with captions like, another long day or weekend vibes. But as I scrolled further back, I found something interesting. A photo from a night out 2 months ago. She had claimed it was a girls' night at some trendy bar with friends. In the background of that photo, barely visible, was Ryan. It was not a coincidence. He had been there on purpose, hiding in plain sight, banking on the fact that I would not notice. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of everything pressing down on me like a stone. I was not just angry. I was betrayed on a level I could not even put into words. I had given her everything, trust, loyalty, and the benefit of the doubt. And she had taken all of that and thrown it away for someone I call my best friend. But I was not done yet. I opened the messaging app linked to our shared cloud account, praying that her recent messages had not been deleted. It did not take long to find what I was looking for. There was a conversation she had archived, hidden away but not deleted. The texts were short, coded, but they told me enough. "Did you tell him where you were last night?" I just said I was out running errands. He did not ask any questions. Good. Let's keep it that way. He has been acting weird lately. I think he is suspicious. Relax. We have been careful. He has no proof. I read the messages over and over, each line stoking the fire in my chest. They were not just having an affair. They were mocking me, treating me like some clueless fool who could not see what was happening right in front of him. I took screenshots of the messages and saved them in a private folder on my laptop. As much as I wanted to confront her with the evidence right then and there, I knew I had to be smart about this. Emily was slippery, a master of denial, and she would try to twist this into something it was not. But with this in hand, she would not be able to escape. She could not deny what was staring her in the face. And when the time came to confront her, I would make sure there was no way out. I closed the laptop, letting the room fall into silence. I had my proof, and now it was just a matter of how and when I chose to use it. I shut the laptop and leaned back, exhaling slowly. My mind was moving fast, flipping between the need for immediate confrontation and the urge to gather more. I could wait, let her dig herself in deeper, let the guilt chew at her until she broke. Or I could end it now, force her to face what she had done. Before I could decide, my phone buzzed on the table. "Emily, staying out late. Do not wait up." I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The old me, the trusting husband, would have believed she was at a friend's house or out running errands. But that version of me was gone. I knew exactly where she was. Grabbing my keys, I stepped outside, the night air biting at my skin. My gut was screaming, telling me where to go. I did not want to be right, but deep down, I already knew I was. The drive was a blur, my thoughts racing faster than the car. By the time I pulled up a block away from Ryan's apartment, my heart was pounding, but not from nerves. This was different. This was the calm before the storm. His place was on the second floor of a small complex, the lights in his living room glowing through the curtains. I sat there, watching, waiting. If she was not here, I would turn around, go home, and deal with this another way. But if she was... Minutes passed, and then the front door opened. Emily stepped out. Her coat was draped loosely over her shoulders, her hair slightly out of place. She paused for a second, glancing back at Ryan, who stood in the doorway with a smug look on his face. They exchanged a few words, nothing I could hear, but I did not need to. The way he leaned against the frame, casual, like he had no reason to hide, told me everything. She walked to her car and drove off. I stayed hidden, waiting for her to be out of sight before stepping out. I was not following her. I was going to him. I did not knock. The door was unlocked, which was mistake number one. I turned the handle and stepped inside, the familiar scent of cheap beer and laundry detergent hitting me as soon as I entered. Ryan was still near the entrance, scrolling through his phone, completely unaware that his night was about to take a turn. When he finally looked up and saw me standing there, the color drained from his face. "Hey, man," he said, try to recover with a weak smile. "Didn't expect to see you." I shut the door behind me and locked it. He saw it. He heard it. And I saw his body tense. "Yeah," I said, my voice too calm. "Figured we should have a chat." He set his phone down slowly on the counter, his fingers twitching like he was trying to think of something to say. "What about?" I took my time, looking around his apartment. It was the same as always, messy, cluttered, a place I'd spent too many weekends hanging out, drinking beer, talking about life. But now it felt different. Now, it felt like the place where he had betrayed me. I turned back to him, my expression blank. "How long?" Ryan blinked. "What? How long have you been sleeping with my wife?" I asked, my voice even controlled. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. His eyes darted toward the door like he was calculating whether he could make a run for it. I stepped forward, blocking his path. Do not even think about it. For a moment, he just stood there, frozen like a deer in headlights. Then, he exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. Listen, it is not what you think. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Oh, it is exactly what I think. I heard her last night. I saw the messages. I saw the calls. So do not stand there and insult me by pretending it is anything else. Ryan swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed. It was a mistake, he muttered. It was never supposed to happen. But it did, I said, stepping even closer. And you did not stop it. You kept going. You kept lying to me, pretending to be my friend while you were screwing my wife. His shoulders slumped, his hands resting on the edge of the counter like they were the only thing holding him up. I am sorry. Sorry, I repeated, shaking my head. You are sorry now that you were caught. Tell me how long. He hesitated. Give me a number. Another pause. Then, barely above a whisper, a few months. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. Months. While I was coming home to her every night. While I was trusting both of them. While I was completely blind to the truth. My hands curled into fists, my pulse thundering in my ears. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to feel my knuckles connect with his face, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain he had put me through. But I did not. Not yet. Instead, I took a deep breath, forcing the anger down. There was something else I needed to know. Was it just her? I asked, my voice like steel. Or have you done this before? Ryan hesitated again. Too long. That was all the answer I needed. I exhaled, stepping back. You are done, I said simply. He frowned. What? You are done. I repeated, clearer this time. You are done with her. You are done with me. And you are done pretending to be a man you are not. You cannot tell me what to do, he shot back, his voice shaking. I smiled. A small, dark thing. Oh, I can. And I will. Because if you do not end it, I will make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. His face twisted, but he said nothing. I turned and walked to the door, unlocking it. Before I stepped out, I looked back at him one last time. You lost, Ryan, I said. Now sit in it. And with that, I left. The night air felt different on the drive home. Lighter, colder, like something had shifted. I had expected the confrontation to feel like a victory, but it did not. The betrayal was still there, fresh and raw. And I still had one more person to deal with. Emily. By the time I pulled into the driveway, her car was already there. She was inside, probably thinking she had gotten away with it, that I was still the fool she had been deceiving for months. She had no idea that I had already seen everything. I stepped out of the car and walked up to the front door. My hand hovered over the handle for a moment, steadying myself. This time, she was not getting away. This time, I was in control. A few months. The words hit me like a hammer to the chest. I had spent those months believing in something that never existed, thinking I was building a life with Emily while she was tearing it down behind my back. I clenched my fists at my sides, trying to steady my breath. You could have stopped, I said, my voice low but firm. You could have told me the truth. But you didn't. What? Ryan finally lifted his head, and for the first time, I saw it, the guilt, the fear, the realization that there was no way out. I do not know, he admitted. It just happened. We never meant for it to go this far. I took a slow, deliberate step toward him. He flinched. You did not mean for it to go this far? I echoed, shaking my head. Every time you answered her call, every time you met up, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended nothing was happening, you meant for it. Do not stand here and pretend this was some accident. Ryan swallowed hard, his hands gripping the counter behind him like it was the only thing keeping him upright. He did not have an answer because there was none. This was not about feelings or mistakes. This was about choices. I paced the room, my mind running through every possible scenario. I could punch him. I wanted to. I could drag his name through the mud, make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of person he was. Or I could walk away and never look back. None of it felt like enough. You know what the worst part is? I asked, stopping just in front of him. I trusted you. You were like a brother to me. And you threw it all away for what? A few months of sneaking around like a coward. His head dropped again, and for a brief moment, I thought he might actually break. His shoulders shook slightly, but I did not care if he was crying. His regret did not mean a damn thing to me now. Does she know I am here? I asked. He shook his head. No. She left before you showed up. Good. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the screenshots of their messages. Because I'm going to show her these. Let's see how well she can lie her way out of this. Ryan's eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. Please, he said, his voice suddenly desperate. Do not do that. She will lose everything. You do not have to ruin her life. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. She already ruined her life. I am just making sure she does not get to rewrite the story and pretend it never happened. He reached out like he was going to grab my arm, but I stepped back before he could touch me. Do not, I warned. You have done enough. I turned and walked toward the door, my mind made up. But before I stepped out, I looked back at him one last time. By the way, I said, my voice calm but cutting, this was never just about her. You are my best friend, and now, you are nothing. I did not wait for a response. I stepped outside and slammed the door behind me. The night air hit my face, but did nothing to cool the fire raging inside me. I pulled out my phone and called Emily. No answer. Not surprising. She was probably avoiding me, already feeling the shift between us. But she could not avoid me forever. I had proof, and this time, she would not be able to lie her way out of it. I got into my car and drove home, every mile solidifying what needed to happen next. I was done giving her the benefit of the doubt, done questioning myself. She had made her choices, and now she would deal with the fallout. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the adrenaline had settled, leaving me with something colder. I was not sad. I was not confused. I was just done. The house was quiet except for the low hum of the TV. I stepped inside, shutting the door behind me. The glow from the living room lamp cast soft shadows against the walls. Emily was curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling through her phone like nothing in the world was wrong. She looked up when I entered, her expression shifting instantly. Hey, she said, her voice too light, too careful. You are back. Yeah, I replied, setting my keys on the table. We need to talk. Her fingers twitched slightly as she set her phone down. About what? I walked over to the coffee table and placed my phone down in front of her. The screen lit up, displaying the screenshots of her messages with Ryan. Every word, every secret, laid out in front of her. Her face paled, her eyes widening as she stared at the screen. What is this? She whispered. You tell me, I said, folding my arms. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you have been lying to me for months. Sneaking around with him behind my back. She shook her head quickly, her breath hitching. No, it is not. She stopped herself, probably realizing there was no way out. It is not what? I asked, tilting my head. Not what it looks like. Not serious? Not something you meant to do? Because I have heard it all already, Emily. Pick a better excuse. Tears welled in her eyes, but they did not move me. They are just texts, she said, her voice shaking. They do not mean anything. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Joking around? That is what you're going with. Late night calls, sneaking around, lying to my face, all just some big joke? She wiped at her eyes, but did not change anything. I am sorry, she whispered. It was not supposed to happen. I did not mean for it to go this far. Yeah, I said, nodding. That is exactly what Ryan said. Funny how neither of you meant for it. Yet somehow, you both kept choosing it. She stood up suddenly, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. Please, she pleaded, her voice breaking. Do not throw us away. You already did, I said. I'm just finishing what you started. The silence that followed was suffocating. She was still crying, still trying to salvage something, but I felt nothing. I had given her everything, my trust, my loyalty, my love, and she had thrown it away for this. I grabbed my jacket and turned toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, her voice cracking. To clear my head. Please, she sobbed. Do not leave like this. We can fix this. I will do whatever it takes. I paused, my hand on the doorknob, and looked back at her one last time. This woman, this stranger, was not the person I had loved. That person had died the moment she chose to betray me. You should have thought of that before, I said. I am done. And with that, I walked out. The cold air wrapped around me as I got into my car. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Messages from her probably begging, making promises, swearing she still loved me. I ignored them. I did not know where I was going. I just knew I was not staying here. The man who had walked into that house hours ago was gone, and the one driving away, he was not looking back.